But, Mark, let's move on into our next discussion, and we're talking quarterbacks in the draft again, but this time a quarterback that is already in the NFL, as sophomore quarterback Josh Rosen could be on the move, could be out of Arizona as soon as the draft. I don't know if he gets traded before the draft, but could be traded on draft night. And according to ESPN's own Todd McShay, the Redskins are the most interested in dealing for the 22-year-old quarterback from the Arizona Cardinals. However, I will say, if you do a little Google search, you'll also see that this is from Finn's Insider, or the Finn's Insider, that the Dolphins are doing their due diligence and have checked in on Josh Rosen. You will also see from Big Blue View, which is the SB Nation Giants site, that the Giants have checked in. There's a possibility that they could be working on a trade with the 37th pick to try to get Josh Rosen. And there's also, I believe it's the Redskins, Giants, Broncos, and Dolphins. So add the Broncos to that.
If you're a team that needs a quarterback, you've done your homework.
Everybody probably except like the Bengals. Except for the Bengals and the Raiders. They've done their due diligence. At the very least,
you're going to pick up the phone and just say, just out of curiosity,
what's the price?
What would it take?
Yeah, what's the price? What are you looking for?
I just want to know. I'm asking for a friend.
I want to ask you this, though, Mark. Should the Cardinals trade Josh Rosen?
No. They shouldn't trade Josh Rosen. And there's a few things. One, Josh Rosen's still a good quarterback who was in a terrible situation last year. He was destined to fail. You guys drafted him so that he could fail. Two, teams that draft quarterbacks early tend to continue drafting quarterbacks early.
God.
If you draft a second one, you're going to draft a third one pretty soon, too.
If I made a Mark Weber themed T-shirt,
right,
that's what would be on it, because you say it every single draft
and it keeps happening. It keeps happening. Finally, it looks like the Browns are out of the cycle, but man, were they there for a long time. Anyways, the third thing is, now, if you draft a guy like Kyler Murray, obviously you have no reason to have Josh Rosen on your team. Go ahead and get rid of him. But you have devalued Josh Rosen so much that a guy you just spent a first-round pick, a high first-round pick last year on, now you're going to get maybe a second if you're lucky. And they even say, in quite a few of these articles, like the one about the Washington Redskins, that the team is not going to offer a first-round pick.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so you have devalued him by telling everybody you just drafted this guy and you don't believe in him so much that you're going to go spend number 1 overall on a quarterback. It's trash. Look at Jimmy Clausen. Jimmy Clausen is a perfect example. He gets drafted by Carolina, barely gets to do very much. He's a terrible team around him. They turn around and they draft Cam Newton, number 1 overall.
The only thing I will say about that, Cam Newton, very different than Kyler Murray.
Correct, they are. But it's the same situation. It's the same situation. Cam Newton might have had some questions about him.
Not the Kyler Murray questions.
Yeah.
Like, we never thought that, like, with
Nobody
Kyler Murray, how we were like, is he going to be able to play in the league?
He's a tank.
Cam Newton was more of like, is his personality going to fit in this league? Is his off-the-field issues going to fit in this league?
Yeah, Cam Newton's a tank. No one doubted that he was going to survive a few hits, and he has survived quite a few hits. The most out of everybody.
And a car accident.
Yep. And
Superman.
He's doing just fine. But, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those situations where you draft a quarterback, and then you draft another quarterback soon after. And it's not that I'm saying Cam Newton, therefore Kyler Murray can't be successful, because I think Cam Newton's a very successful quarterback, especially this coming year. It is an odd year after all. But anyways, it's saying, look at Jimmy Clausen. Look at his career, what happened. That's what you're going to end up doing to Josh Rosen, potentially. You'll probably get more trade value because Josh Rosen's a better quarterback than Jimmy Clausen was, just as a prospect.
Yeah.
But you are driving down his value so much. And that's the problem. If you were going to trade him earlier. Trade him before. But now they got Cliff Kingsbury there with his new offense. And I still think that drafting a quarterback, the franchise guy, the guy who represents your whole team, drafting one of him just to fit a somewhat gimmicky offense is an issue.
Yeah, I don't think the Cardinals should trade Josh Rosen. It's like I was telling you before the podcast, when I was starting my next mock draft for us next week, I had a hard time at number 1 deciding who I was going to put there, because the whole thing for me is when I do a mock draft, there's some people that do mock drafts differently. There's some people that want to be right. I look at it as, okay, I am this team's GM. I am drafting for this team alone.
Yeah.
Who am I
don't
taking?
care about trades.
I don't care about trades. I don't care about, like, oh, I like this guy better than the Jets, so I'm not going to have the 49ers take him at 2. No, I am drafting for this team. Who do I pick? And for me, when it comes to the Cardinals, I look at this team and I go, you have way too many needs to take Kyler Murray at number 1. Like,
who's going to protect him?
It would be different if it's like, okay, this team had good weapons, had an offensive line, and Josh Rosen didn't play up. But that's not the case. I still remember, I have kept this tweet saved because it's a great tweet. I got to give the hat tip to our own Sean Anderson for finding it because he sent it to us. And it's from Ben Fennell. And it says, Josh Rosen was sacked 17 times in under 2.5 seconds, most in the NFL. 17 sacks essentially before you can 5-step with a hitch. Holy moly. And then he replied to it and said, means your O-line is getting shredded and you aren't seeing / picking up blitzers. LOL ... Josh. And I look at that and I go, well, that means Kyler Murray's not going to have success unless you're, and the Kyler Murray apologists will be like, yeah, but he's more mobile. He'll run quicker. No, it just means he'll get hit sooner. Or like,
and
he'll
will
get
break
hit a little
because
later.
he's small.
Exactly. And for me, I look at this and I go, if the question seems dumb in a sense of like, if you're going to take Kyler Murray number 1, trade Josh Rosen.
Yes.
Don't keep both of them on your team.
Although
But
there's an argument for that.
there is an argument. I wouldn't do it. I would, if you're going to draft Kyler Murray, you're going with Kyler Murray, get him out. Because Josh Rosen, it's not like a Mahomes, Alex Smith situation. It's not a Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre situation. Well, these are both younger quarterbacks.
The argument for that it does have some value.
It's more of a Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins situation.
No, that's not the argument I'm trying to make. The argument is that you keep them and you wait until that other quarterback gets injured. You keep them both on your team in week 4 when, let's say, Patrick Mahomes gets injured, but the Chiefs have a really good...
Or Joe Flacco gets injured.
Joe Flacco could be a Jared Goff, could be just somebody who is on a good team right now. This team is ready to make that move. They can get into the playoffs. They can win a Super Bowl, and all of a sudden he gets injured, and you say, well, we have a good quarterback in Josh Rosen. Do you want the next Nick Foles? Because we'll give him to you. There's the argument there is essentially that his trade value can go up if you keep him.
I get that.
But then you're dependent on an injury.
I get that, but also with me in my head, I look at this draft and I look at the needs of the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, there's no reason when you look at needs. There's no excuse for the Arizona Cardinals to take Kyler Murray.
Even in that first round, even in that second round, like to me, if the Raiders called me up and said, you can have the 4th and our Cowboy pick, done deal. I'm putting the paperwork through because I'm getting 2 first-rounders for the price of 1, and I'm going to be at 4, which means the Raiders are trading up. They're going to be taking Kyler Murray. So that's probably Kyler Murray at 1. Then the 49ers will probably go Nick Bosa at 2 because they really need a pass rusher. Then the Jets will most likely go with Josh Allen at 3 or trade. So that's another quarterback. That means I'm looking at either Quinnen Williams or I get to choose between Josh Allen and Quinnen Williams if a team traded up with the Jets to take another quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting pieces that can help this team now with Josh Rosen.
For sure.
Compared to taking a quarterback and kind of kicking that other, like, kicking the other needs down the line.
When you look at the needs, I mean, this is one of the few spots on the team where there isn't a need. You have a quarterback. You have a good quarterback. You just don't have anything around him, so he's not playing as well as he could.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to me, it just doesn't make sense. Should they trade him? Only if they are set on drafting Kyler Murray and actually do it. But the thing that's never made too much sense to me is for the Arizona Cardinals, you guys are the number 1 overall pick. You don't need all the mystery. You don't need the smoke screen.
Nick Bosa
Just
is
take
my
him.
pick. Nick Bosa is my pick. And the reason why is I kind of had this thought today of you can argue Quinn and Williams, but I would take Nick Bosa because, yes, you have Terrell Suggs. And if you look at ourlads.com, they have Terrell Suggs on the defensive line on the end, and you've got Chandler Jones on the other end. You might be saying, well, Ricky, you don't need another defensive end.
But you can take one.
Double not so fast. Dave says, I believe it was Dave, says I've never said this. I say this all the time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. There are two positions, or no, it was Brandon, said I never say this, and I was like, Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong. There are two positions that are the most important in football. One's your quarterback.
Yeah.
Two's a pass rush. And you already have a quarterback. Why not go and get a pass rush? You can move Terrell Suggs to the outside linebacker. So for me, you're moving him to weak side linebacker to be on the outside, and you're putting Nick Bosa there on the defensive end. And now you have 3 pass rushers instead of just 2.
And that, at number 1 overall, that's conventional draft logic. You're either getting someone who throws those touchdown passes or is hitting the guy throwing the touchdown passes, to stop him from doing so. That's typically like your sure thing, number 1 overall. Maybe an offensive lineman every now and then. But you want someone who's going to be one of those difference makers. Quarterbacks are difference makers. Pass rushers are difference makers. It's that easy. And it also is easy with a Bosa. It's going to be like the best player in the draft.
Yeah.
One of the best players in the draft.
And I mean, if you look at it this way, like let's say Josh Rosen is worth a second-round pick. The Giants are your best value. They're at 37. The Broncos are at 41. The Dolphins are at 48. And the Redskins are at 46.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're not getting... You can nail a pick in the second round. There have been, look at early on in, the 37 range.
Yeah, there's always going to be good players
Look at
there.
Dallas, what they did.
Yeah.
They had, I think it was Jalen Smith. I always forget his name. Notre Dame linebacker tore his ACL in his bowl game. They picked him up. Steal, because they were able to just
injury
sit him
is the steal.
Yeah, injury was that steal. But we have seen teams hit in the second round. So, I mean, it's not like it's a bad pick. I don't see the reason in drafting Kyler Murray number 1 and trading Josh Rosen for a second.
It doesn't truly improve your team. It keeps your team exactly where it is.
Yeah. And, I mean, I get the other side of keep them both, and then you can trade maybe a Josh Rosen when a quarterback gets injured. But how does that help you this season? I know people are going to say, well, Ricky, we're not expecting the Cardinals to win the Super Bowl next year.
Very true.
But when you're a head coach like Kingsbury, you can't sit there and be complacent. You can't sit there and go, hey, after 1 year, I'll be safe. Look at the guy that just was there before you.
Yeah.
1 year and he got fired.
I would hope that he has a little bit more assurances that he'll be kept around. But it's also with the head coach. He's not the one making the draft pick. So if they're taking Kyler Murray, they are, in my eyes, saying you will be around for a little bit. Not necessarily John Gruden style, but you're going to have at least 2 or 3 years. We're giving you what you want because we believe in you.
Technically, you could say they did that for Steve Wilkes and still fired him. Hey, we are giving you your quarterback.
You yourself believe that they didn't, that they weren't giving him a chance. I don't think they gave him an actual chance.
I don't think they gave him a chance. I think that
they brought him in to fail.
At the time, I was like, I really don't know how this is going to pan out because it kind of seemed like it was just the last of we got to hire someone. This guy. That's what it seemed like to me. And then obviously seeing Steve Wilkes coach, it was kind of like, whoa, I'm over my head here.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the year, I was kind of an advocate for him to get fired.
Yeah, to me, it's just that I don't believe that the Arizona Cardinals actually really cared or believed that much in Steve Wilkes. They were ready to get rid of Steve Wilkes by week 6, if not sooner, really. So, yeah, to me with Kingsbury, if they're going to replace the quarterback they just drafted last year with a new quarterback that is drafted purely to fit this air raid kind of scheme that they have, not a pure air raid, but that is we have confidence in you. You are here for a reason. We went and got you. We are giving you the pieces that you need to make this successful.
Two questions. First off, could you see the New England Patriots trading, let's say, the 32nd overall pick for a Josh Rosen?
Maybe.
And maybe to me that might be the best deal the Cardinals can get, because it's like, okay, we can draft someone and get a 5th-year option on them instead of have to do in the second. The main question I wanted to ask you is, looking at Josh Rosen, let's say he does get traded. Out of all the teams looking at him, out of all the teams he could be traded for, you, before we recorded, was like, if he gets traded, you kind of want Josh Rosen. Like, you're going to be pulling for Josh Rosen.
Of course.
I will, too, because basically it's going to be, I want you to stick it to the Cardinals.
Definitely.
For trading you.
They gave up on you. We want you to do well.
Which team do you think he has the best chance to be successful with, and how does he really fit with the teams looking at him?
Of teams that need quarterbacks, which one do I think he'll be most successful with? Let's think about it. Of the teams that need quarterbacks, I think I have to say the Giants.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go.
He's got support with Saquon Barkley, an amazing player. The offense could be a little bit better. They just got rid of OBJ. But the defense is good enough. They're not an amazing team. None of these teams are going to be amazing teams where we're sitting there going, oh, easily he's going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But they're going to be teams where it's like, well, you're pretty close. You're going to be in contention probably this year, and then next year you might actually make it. Yeah. Especially with a guy like Pat Shurmur to work with a young quarterback and Josh Rosen. That has potential to be a very, very good match.
No, yeah, that's the two teams I would think about. The Giants are my clear number one, because not only do they have the best team around him on the offense, because, like, I look at the Redskins. The Redskins might be my second option. Because,
they probably would be my second option,
they've got the coaching staff that can be successful with him. The question is, would Case Keenum be part of that deal? I saw an article where there's a rumor where Case Keenum would be a part of the deal, and they would basically flip Case Keenum for
I hope Case hasn't bought a house yet.
And Case Keenum would then be backing up Kyler Murray. But, like, the wide receivers don't really kind of impress me in Washington. I mean, Adrian Peterson was good last year, but, like, Adrian Peterson's not no young Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
And then just the Dolphins. I don't know what to expect from Flores as head coach of that team. And I don't like the weapons out there in Miami. I don't like the wide receiver weapons. I don't like Kenyon Drake is good, but, like, I'm not impressed with that team overall. And then you got the Broncos, where it's like, they're a young team. Joe Flacco's there. Josh Rosen.
That's just a bad combo, Joe Flacco and Josh Rosen.
Well, and plus, that's another one, too, of, like, the Dolphins and the Broncos are in the same situation of defensive head coaches. What are we going to see from their offensive coaches? Because obviously, like in Denver, Vic Fangio is going to have nothing to do with the offense. He's just going to let Scargello kind of run that offense and kind of have his way with it. Kind of like how Nagy had nothing to do with the defense when Vic Fangio was with the Bears. Fangio did everything with the defense, and Nagy did everything with the offense. That's kind of how it's going to be in Denver, but Fangio will deal with the defense instead of the offense.
I just think purely that if you trade for a guy like Josh Rosen, it's because you want him to play right now. You're not going to go ahead and say, Joe, you play first, and then we'll see about Josh Rosen.
I don't know. I could see if the Broncos trade for him, they're going to... I see it as a Joe gets this year, and then he's gone for sure after this year.
No, I can't see it. Not a guy who was just a top pick last year. You're going to trade a second for him, probably. It's too...
Which would be the 41st overall pick.
Yeah, you draft a guy like that, a guy who can start, he's going to be starting.
Yeah, to me, out of them, though, the Giants would be... And then that's interesting. If the Giants trade the 37th for Josh Rosen, then they got 2 picks in the first round. They don't even need to take a quarterback. They got their quarterback.
They just got one, yeah.
They can take defense at 6 and maybe like an offensive weapon, like a wide receiver for them at 17. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think. Number 1, should the Cardinals trade Josh Rosen? Number 2, who do you think he'd be traded to? And then number 3, where do you think he'd have the most success if he did get traded? Let us know what you guys are thinking down below in that comment section.